Let's go. So grateful to be with you guys tonight. Well, you could keep crashing, I guess, if you want. There it is. Man, we had such a powerful time in God's presence this weekend, and I don't think God's done with that. I think God wants to continue to move, and shout out to Cedar Falls for showing up today. Appreciate you guys. Like Pastor Zach said, my name is Joey Silva. I am a lead pastor in Chicago. It's funny when people ask me, like, what part of Chicago are you from? I'm always like, do you know the city? Because I think they expect me to say, like, Naperville or something an hour and a half away. I'm in the actual city. I am an actual city boy. I live in Chicago, born and raised in Chicago. You know, I started going to my church at 15 years old as a student. I did that until my early 20s when I became a youth leader. And then at 24, they hired me on as a youth pastor. I did that for 13 years. And then 4 years ago, I got demoted to the lead pastor role. And so I'm 41. I've been in my church since I was 15. It's the only place I've known. And I am so grateful for longevity and what God has done. And I am super excited about what God is doing at this campus. I believe in the vision that God has given your pastors, Pastor Zach and Marin, of doing a phenomenal job. And you are so fortunate to have them. Sometimes it's hard to appreciate what you have in-house because you don't know any differently. So let me just boast on your pastors. They are phenomenal leaders who could honestly be doing anything, and yet they are obedient to the voice of God to do what God has called them to do here at Grimes. And I am so grateful that they get to be here, that you are here with them. And, you know, my hope, and this is the beauty of doing ministry with friends, I hope in the future when I come, I can be like, bro, remember when it was just this one little room, and remember when we were back at the school? You remember that? Well, I can't believe you built this, and I can't believe you've done that, and look at that person. Now, that is the beauty of being able to eat fruit from a seed that was planted years before. And so you guys have the privilege of being on the ground floor, and I commend you for that. My church is 120 years old. I didn't start it. And so I am so grateful to be with you on there. I was thinking about prayerfully what to communicate to you guys this morning, and I was asking the Lord what to share. And, you know, I have a heart for people. People they always move me. I'm always just thinking about people. I remember one time I was in Mexico. I'm Mexican and Puerto Rican, and my family were in Mexico, and we're not like in your Mexico, you know, like Cancun or like wherever you guys go. We're like, where you go on a mission trip is where my family lives. And so we're in like, you know, little village in Mexico, and I remember I was standing outside, and this guy was dragging his friend who was passed out, drunk or high or something. He was not conscious. And he dropped them in front of me. And he's like, will you watch my friend while I go get some other people to help? And I said, yes, sir. I was 8. And I just stood there. And my mom's like, what are you doing? It's like, the guy told me to watch his friend. And she said, come inside. I was like, nah, I told him I'd watch his friend. Like, I got to watch his friend. So I've always had a heart for people. By the way, he did come with other people. And I don't know what happened, but I didn't have to watch him no more. And so I do have a heart for people. And so one of the things that like really will get to me is I tend to notice when somebody is carrying something heavy, when they're weighed down. You ever notice that with people? Or there's something on their face or something about their countenance where you can kind of tell, like, man, that person looks tired, or that person looks weighed down. A person looks like they're going through something right now. And I want to talk to you this morning about loads and burdens, what you're meant to carry and what you're not meant to carry. And I think if you pay attention this morning, if you take notes, this is the type of message that can serve you faithfully in your life if you can understand how to differentiate that and take into practice some of the principles that I'm going to talk about this morning. And so if you're taking notes, the genesis of this message came in Galatians chapter 6. I paused to let it happen, Zach. I like it. I like that you guys do. I'm going to start doing that at my church. Galatians chapter 6, listen, verse 1 through 6. I read this and I thought this doesn't make sense on the surface. And let me share with you what didn't make sense. It says, brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Now, listen, underline this. Carry each other's burdens. And in the same way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. In other words, you're not that big a deal. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. Thank God we never compare ourselves to anybody else. right? We just worry about ours. We're not ever comparing. I did a series called Compare is Sin. It's one of the worst things that we can do. But then it goes on to say, so we don't have to compare to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. Might want to underline that. Each one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. So I'm reading that, and on the one hand, it says that each of us are responsible to carry our own load. But on the other hand, it says that we have to carry each other's burdens. And so I asked myself, which one is it? Am I supposed to carry each other's burdens, or am I supposed to carry my own load? And the answer is yes. It is not a and or, it is a both and. And I think if we're not careful, we tend to side on one side or the other, right? We tend to be all about helping other people at the detriment of ourselves, or only ever thinking of ourselves at the detriment of other people. And God is calling us to do both, to carry your load and to carry other people's burdens. But there is a differentiation there that I think is important for us to understand in order to find out how to do that well. And you got to take into account that this is shipping terminology, loads and burdens. A load is something you are meant to carry. If you have a shipping container or a railroad or a truck, every one of them is built for and made for carrying a load from one place to another. Now, every one of those vehicles has what we would call a load capacity, the maximum amount of load that is meant to carry. And there's a load capacity built or based on how they're built. A ship will have a greater load capacity than a truck. A train will have a greater load capacity than a truck. Your truck has a greater load capacity than my Camry. Everything has a different load capacity, but they all have a capacity. Do you know that the ocean is filled, like literally filled with containers of goods that fall off shipping containers? Like they just tip over. And like pirates will go in and try to open them up. But like there's just shipping containers floating all over the ocean because boats are carrying more than what they're built to carry. It's why on the highways there's weigh stations, because trucks are meant to have a limit on what they can carry. Now, listen, if you're carrying 2,000 pounds, right, a ton, let's say, is your load capacity, but you can get a little bit more money if you carry an extra half ton. Some might be tempted to carry that extra half ton, not thinking it's a big deal. Now, I don't know how long you've been in Iowa or the Midwest, but I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. We are very flat land. And if you've ever driven on that highway going 100 miles an hour and a gust of wind hits under that carriage, you realize it can knock you off the road, let alone any other kind of weather you got. And so what happens is when these trucks carry more than what they're built to carry, it is very easily, and the probability of an accident increases exponentially. Just a little gust of wind can have that truck tip over. You ever been driving on the highway and you're like, it's like not safe, but it's all right. And then you see a truck flipped over and all of a sudden your second hand gets on the wheel and you start driving like you're doing your test again at 16 and you're like, now I'm going to drive for real. Because there's that warning sign. But listen, it's not always the weather. Sometimes it's because they were carrying more than what they were supposed to carry. Anything that is over the load capacity is a burden. That's what I would categorize a burden. Anything that's more than what you're meant or built to carry. Now, a burden becomes detrimental to the load. And when a truck tips over, it not only endangers itself, but it endangers everybody else that's on that highway. And when you carry more than what you're meant to carry, you not only endanger yourself, but everybody who's dependent on you. And so what's my load and what's my burden? What am I supposed to carry and what am I not supposed to carry? I think Exodus 17 gives us a really good picture of that. In Exodus 17, the people of God had escaped Egypt. They've been wandering in the desert, and all of a sudden they get attacked by another group of people called the Amalekites. And this is the first time we see the Exodus generation and the new generation led by Joshua attacked by another nation, and now they have to fight physically themselves. And I want you to notice what happens. In verse 8 through 13, it says, while the people of Israel was still at Rephidim, the warriors of Amalek attacked them. Moses commanded Joshua, choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek for us. Tomorrow, I will stand at the top of a hill, holding the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did what Moses had commanded and fought the army of Amalek. Meanwhile, Moses, Aaron, and Hur climbed to the top of a nearby hill. As long as Moses held up the staff in his hand, the Israelites had the advantage. But whenever he dropped his hand, the Amalekites gained the advantage. In other words, while Moses' hands are up praying, they're winning the fight. When Moses' hand would drop, they're losing the fight. Moses' arms soon became so tired, he could no longer hold them up. So Aaron and Hur found a stone for him to sit on. Then they stood on each side of Moses, holding up his hands. So his hands held steady until sunset. As a result, Joshua overwhelmed the army of Amalek in battle. There are 4 principles that I think you need to learn to act out in your life if we're going to be successful at loads and burdens. No matter how old you are, the youngest to the oldest, I think all of these can apply to us and should apply to us if we're going to be successful at doing what God's called us to do. And the first thing is this: you have to make a commitment. I am going to carry my own load. I am going to carry my own load. Joshua had his load, fight the army of Amalek in the valley. Moses has his load, pray at the top of a nearby hill. Moses couldn't do Joshua's job. Joshua couldn't do Moses' job. Each person had to do their job in order for all of them to be successful. You have certain responsibilities that God has planned before you ever said yes to him that are your job, your responsibility, your path that God has laid out for your life. And you have to take responsibility for the things that God has given you. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. You might babysit, but you're not raising my kids. Those are my kids to raise. I have that responsibility to raise them. I have a wife. She's amazing. She's my wife to deal with. I'm her husband to deal with. We are each other's load. You are not going to, better not stay, get away from my wife. You can't be a husband to my wife, and I can't be that is mine, my responsibility. And we have to own our responsibility. This is so critical. Listen, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 6 through 8 says, I planted the seed in your hearts and Apollos watered it, but it was God who made it grow. It's not important who does the planting or who does the watering. What's important is that God makes the seed grow. The one who plants and the one who waters work together with the same purpose, and both will be rewarded for their hard work. Again, I can't raise your household. I have my own to raise. I can't work your job. I got my own job. I can't pay your mortgage. I got my own mortgage. I just bought a house in June. I knew nothing about mortgages. Apparently, property tax is a thing. And it's an expensive thing where I live. And I can't be like, will you pay my property tax this year? No, you got your own taxes to pay. You got your own bills to cover. And so I got to be able to take responsibility for the things that are my responsibility. Where we get into trouble is when we start getting mad at other people for not helping us with our load. Where we start acting like, well, this person should help me, or that person should help me, or the church should help me. And it's like, listen, we can help you. We can't do it for you. You know, we had a guy in our church years ago that he was in some financial issues, and so we helped him in a couple of the jams that he was in. But when we helped financially, we sat down and we went through all his finances and we went through all his expenses, and we tried to help him understand you are living beyond your means. You cannot hold on to this house. You have to sell your house because this is going to keep happening. He was so angry. He cussed every one of us out. The church is this, the church is that. It's like, buddy, we didn't get you in that financial situation. We helped you one time, but the church is not going to pay your bills forever. And he left, shook the dust off his feet and cursed our name. I'm sorry, I can't do anything for you. There's one thing to help. If you're struggling in school and you get a tutor, you can't expect the tutor to do your homework and take your tests. They're just going to help you. And so we have to be able to take onus over our own thing, to take ownership over what God has called us to do. And I love that Pastor Zach talked about how we're a family. Because the family of God, when you're a family, it's different than when you're a visitor. Some of you are visiting today. No pressure. You're a visitor. You visit my house, I'm going to treat you well. I'm going to bring you something to drink. I'm going to bring you something to eat. I will serve you. I will lead you places. I will make sure you don't have to move an inch. But my family comes over, now you better serve me. You better go to the fridge and get it yourself. I ain't getting up for you. Go get it. Like your family. Like you roam around. My family, Thanksgiving, there's you come to my family, I'll show you where the bathroom is. You're my family, they go upstairs to my ensuite bathroom. That's where they lay down their burdens. And I'm like, that's the special bathroom. But you lay down your burdens in my ensuite, you ain't never come to my house. I don't know you like that. So again, like this is the thing that we got to understand. What does that mean for you and I? Okay, if you're a family of this church, you got to carry your load. God called you here not to be a spectator, but to be a participant. That's why you're here. You're here because you're a missing piece of the Grimes Church, of this location. I said Grimes Church, of the Grimes location. You're a missing piece. You're the children's worker we've been needing. You're the guest greeter we've been needing. You're part of the youth ministry that's building out. You're part of this team, and you got to figure out, well, where's my load here? Why has God called me to this place? Is it to be on the worship team, but I don't know how to play an instrument? Is it to learn an instrument to be on the worship team? Like, why has God called me here? And I'm telling you, man, when you figure out your place in the church, it goes from their church to my church. Because this is my load to carry. And when everybody carries their load, the church, Pastor Zach can't preach, lead worship, and do children's ministry. Like, we need everybody to do their job. And so you got to make this commitment. I am going to find out and take responsibility for my load. Now, on the flip side, the second thing is I am going to carry other people's burdens. So yes, I'm gonna take care of what I need to take care of, but I am also gonna be mindful of the burdens that people are going through when it gets more than what they can handle, more than what they're meant to carry. Aaron and Hur noticed a few things. They had this very unique perspective. While Joshua's in the valley fighting the battle and Moses on the hill praying, they can see what's going on. They can tell that while Moses' hands are lifted, they're winning the battle. But when Moses' hands drop, they start losing the battle. And then they had the extra onus to notice that he's getting tired. He's not dropping his hands because he wants them to lose. He's dropping his hands because he's tired. Are you mindful of each other enough to recognize when someone's tired? And I need you to know something, like, I'm a strong man. I like to consider myself a strong man. This doesn't take much for me to hold up. Look at that. Skills. I can hold this up a couple minutes. No problem. It's not how heavy it is, guys, but how long I've been holding it. The staff Moses was carrying wasn't heavy. He was just carrying it all day. You got to look at somebody and go, well, it doesn't seem like it's that big a deal. It's not. They just been carrying that for a long time. So what are you going to do to help when the load becomes a burden, when it becomes too much, when they're starting to lose, when they're starting to drop their hands? Are you going to be mindful enough of your neighbor, of your leaders, of your family, of your friends to say, hey, let me come alongside you. Let me lift up your arms because you look like you're getting tired. I want you to notice, Moses didn't say, little help. Can you guys come over here? No, Aaron and Hur were mindful of their leader. I love that they got tired. It was Moses' load to carry. Moses is the one. He has to be the one at the hill praying, lifting up the staff. He's God's chosen instrument. But the burden of holding his arms up that long got the best of him. And so Aaron and Hur come to lift up his arms, lift up his burden. Listen, Romans chapter 15, verse 1 through 2. We who are strong have an obligation to bear with the failings of the weak and not to please ourselves. Let each of us please his neighbor for his good, to build him up. Sometimes we can be so self-absorbed with our own issues, with our own struggles, that we don't even pay mind to the other person and how they're struggling. And again, I'm not saying we're going to carry their thing forever. But if I can give you a hand, if I can lift you up, if I can just try a little bit. I remember I had a good friend of mine who his family was at a gas station, and there was a single mom and a little boy who had a flat tire, and they were struggling to change the flat tire. And the dad's pumping gas, and one of his daughters tells his mom, he's like, tell dad to help that lady. And she goes, I don't have to. He's going to do it. And then before he got in the car, finished pumping the gas, walks over to that car, gets down on his knees, and changes the tire for them. And the daughter goes, how did you know dad was going to do that? Because I know the kind of man your father is. Like, He will notice those things. And so I'm asking, as you're going by your day, as you're going through the motions, as you're going to the store and to your job and to your school, are you mindful when somebody else is drowning, is hurting, is struggling, to say, hey, can I help you with that a little bit? When you're in church and someone's in the back holding their newborn baby, especially those first-time parents, they ain't letting that baby go for nowhere. They're not taking them to children's ministry. So they're holding the baby, and that baby's crying. And you know how churches are sometimes, right? Baby's crying, everybody starts turning around. Oh my God, just leave already. Like, why don't you get out? Like, oh, you're being distracting. I can't even hear the pastor. How about you go, hey, can I hold that for a second? I just sit right. Can I hold your baby? I was on the airplane one time. There was a single mom with her baby juggling the bassinet, all the stuff, trying to get a seat. I said, hey, do you want me to hold your baby? I was next to her, sitting next to her. I said, do you want me to hold your baby? She goes, please. I said, yeah. It's not like I'm going to run away with it. I'm right here next to you. And I just held the baby, and there was such a relief on her eyes to go, thank you. I said, no problem, have a seat. I got 3 kids of my own. I get your struggle. When you see somebody who's hurting, when you see somebody who's struggling, it doesn't take much, by the way. I didn't raise her baby. I just held it for a few minutes. And sometimes it's that little bit of help. That little bit of relief. You know, if you've ever lifted weights, or let's say you're bench pressing and you got a spotter, and the weight gets to a point where you can't push that last rep, and it's about to fall on your neck, and all that spotter has to do, just a couple of fingers. I just need enough to get it over the hump. I just need enough help to get it over the hump. Man, if you can just come alongside each other and say, hey, let me just enough to help you get over the hump. The relief, and I'm telling you, when somebody does that for me, there's something in my heart that I'm like, I am your man. Whatever you need, man, you were there for me. I'm here for you. Now, that being said, those are 2 very basic, very clear principles, right? I'm going to worry about the things that I need to worry about. I'm going to carry my own load. I'm going to take responsibility, but I'm also going to be mindful of my neighbor. I'm going to be watchful for my neighbor. I'm going to make sure that when it comes too much, I'm going to help them. Those seem great, and we could easily end it at that, but there's 2 extra layers that I think are more important to the overall aspect of this, and the third one is this. We have to commit to saying, I will not carry other people's load. I'll carry your burden, but I'm not carrying your load. Notice that Aaron and Hur didn't take Moses' staff, tell him to go take a pee break, and lift up their hands and begin to pray. They understood we are not Moses. We are not the man of God. We are not the chosen and anointed one that he has purposed and planned and called to stand on that hill and pray. The best we can do is lift up his arms, but we cannot take his mantle. You do more harm than good when you carry other people's loads for them. That is not yours to carry, that is theirs to carry. God is the one that put that load on their life. God is the one that's moving them in that direction. We do more harm than good when we take that off. When you've been cleaning your kid's room for 18 years, don't be shocked that a 19-year-old doesn't know how to clean their room. You guys learn how to clean your room, by the way. Like at some point, my kids, I don't know if you've ever had this with your kids. Marin, I think you might understand this. When they're babies, I wipe their butt. I ain't wiping their butt their whole life. There comes a point, and they test it, right? When they're toddlers, they'll go and they finally learn how to like lift it up and sit down and poop by themselves. And then inevitably they go, Papi, what? Come wipe me. No. Come wipe me. I'm not wiping you. It's not because, and listen, I'm be honest, I do their laundry. Sometimes I probably should wipe them. There's some of y'all that they probably should still wipe you. I get it. But if I always wipe them, they will never learn to wipe themselves. At some point, I got to deal with some dirty laundry so that they don't have to deal with soiled laundry when they're adults. What we do when we take other people's loads is we disable them and we stunt their growth. Listen, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 11 through 13. No discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It's painful. But afterward, there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. So take a new grip with your tired hands and strengthen your weak knees. That is one of my favorite bars in the Bible. Because it's not like, oh, let me grab that. Nah, bro, take a new grip with tired hands and strengthen those weak knees. Get up. Love that. And he says, make out a straight path for your feet so that those who are weak and lame will not fall, but become strong. What you may consider empowering someone else might actually be enabling them. You're enabling them to continue bad habits or sin. You're enabling them to stay emotionally and spiritually immature. You're enabling them to fail. But he's my son. Yeah, he's 47 years old. He needs to leave your house. Go work at Taco Bell, figure it out. There are jobs out there. You may not like the job, but there are jobs out there. Like at some point, and again, I understand like, hey, they lost their job, they're insured something. There's a season. My kids, if they're ever in help, there's gonna be a season. But I already did a good amount of that season. And so there's not gonna be the rest of my life season. There's gonna be, hey, I'm gonna help you back on your feet until the burden is lifted and then you go back and carry your load. And it's not just with children. Sometimes it's the same thing. You know, some young couples, they get married and they leave their house and mom and dad haven't gotten the memo. And mom and dad keep treating them like they're their kids. And I understand they'll always be your kids, but they leave mother and father and cling to their wife. Biggest red flag sometimes I see in husbands when I'm counseling is when mom and wife have equal say. I'm like, homie, you're not married to your mom. Leave your mom. This is your new family. Learn how to handle your business. But my mom needs me. Your mom's an adult. She needs to let you go and worry about her own load. You can't carry your mom forever. These are really hard things to understand for people because it's family. And we're like, no, but that's my best friend, but that's my cousin, but that's my mom. But yeah, no, I understand all that. But you're not actually helping them. You're hurting them because if they can't learn how to carry it, they're never gonna carry it. We can't carry other people's loads for one real big reason. It's not realistically sustainable. You have your own load to keep up with. Church, you might want to write this down because this is hard to understand. Some of your burdens are actually other people's loads that you were never asked to carry. Not by God. Well, I got a lot of burdens on my life. No. You got a lot of other people's loads. And if you let them carry their load, guess what? You got no more burdens. It's a burden because you're stunting them. It's time to release those burdens. It's time to let it go. And again, this is helpful to them. Yes, it's painful for a season, but I used to always tell this story. It's one of my favorite just made up stories, but it's about a traveler who was going up a mountain on a hill. And I have to say it's made up because one time we were in a leaders meeting and one of my leaders is like, it's like that story in the Bible about the traveler on the hill. I was like, oh my God, you think that's in the Bible? I made that up. Oh no, you need to read your Bible. Like I was really concerned. This is not biblical. This is, Second Opinions chapter Joey, okay? So he's going up this trail. He's going up this mountain trail, and then there's a boulder that blocks his trail. And so he cries out to the Lord and he says, God, would you remove this boulder from my path? And the Lord calls back and says, push the boulder. So he pushes the boulder and he pushes the boulder with everything he's got, and the boulder doesn't budge an inch. And so he cries out to the Lord again. He says, Lord, would you remove this boulder from my path? And the Lord answered in the same way. And he said, push the boulder. And all day and all night, he pushed the boulder and he pushed the boulder and it didn't move an ounce. The next day he got up, he said the same prayer and the Lord answered in the same way. And all day he pushed. This went on for days, for weeks, for months. And one day he wakes up and does the same thing he's been doing. He cries out to the Lord and he asks the Lord to remove the boulder. Suddenly lightning hits the boulder splits in two and he crosses to the other side. And he says, God, thank you for removing the boulder from my path. And I don't want to seem ungrateful. But couldn't you have done that months ago? Why now? And then the Lord said, I need you to look at your arms. I need you to look at your legs. I need you to see the muscles you developed from pushing that boulder every day. What you didn't understand is I was using that boulder to strengthen you for what's on the other side of the boulder. When you steal their load, you weaken them for what's on the other side of the boulder. This isn't even the heaviest load they're going to carry yet. But they can't carry the heaviest load if you don't learn how to carry the first load. Listen, when I started bench pressing in high school, my parents didn't let me play football because they were worried I'd break my neck. So I joined the weightlifting club. And I was embarrassed because I barely could bench press 50 pounds. But in a year or two, I was benching 275, 3 sets of 10, like it was nobody's business. I was strong. It takes a lot of muscle to carry all this. And so, but I didn't start at 275. And if I didn't push through 100, I wasn't going to get to the next level. Oh, but they're struggling. It's their first baby. Yeah, and if they want another one, they better figure this out. They got to get to a point where they can be strengthened. That being said, some of you have no problem with that. You're like, I'll cut them all loose. No problem. Some of us, though, and I would argue maybe some of the men in this room, your struggle is you're not willing to let people help you. Point number 4, I will let other people carry my burdens. Some of us are too proud to accept help, let alone ask for it. Moses wasn't too proud to let Aaron and Hur carry his burden. It's pride that stops us from receiving help when we need it. It's pride that tells you can only rely on you. It's pride that makes you feel embarrassed to let other people know you're struggling. It's pride that makes you believe it's all you alone. There are people standing around that would gladly help you if you were actually willing to let them help you. I mentioned in the first service, I've done ministry for 17 years. And I've had all types of difficult seasons and all types of challenges that God has used to strengthen me and help me. But I've learned some hard lessons. One of the hardest lessons I learned came on the back end of one of my youth leaders molesting a student in our youth ministry. I had to have him arrested. I had to testify to grand jury. I had to have Child Protective Services interview everybody. I had to manage all the interpersonal relationships. I had to take care of the parents and the victim. Like, there was a number of things that I was juggling, and I had this deep sense of responsibility. I'm the pastor. I got to shepherd this. I got to carry this. And by God's grace, we did. And, to the best of the situation, God was able to work things out, and I give God glory for that. But then as a back end of that, I ended up having 2 anxiety attacks. I remember the first one. I'm in the hospital. My then girlfriend, now wife, is sitting next to me, and I can't catch my breath. I have a history of asthma, so I'm like, I've never even had to go to the hospital before. So now I'm like, I'm gonna die. Like, that's that kind of a thing. And I remember looking at her, I was like, hey, I love you. She's like, oh. I was like, I love you too. I was like, yeah, I never told you I love you, and I don't want to die, and you didn't know I loved you. Okay, I can die now. And the doctors came in. They said, Mr. Silva, your oxygen levels are fine. You're not breathing. I go, yeah, moron. That's why I'm here. I'm not breathing. He goes, no, Mr. Silva, you're not breathing. You're having an anxiety attack. I go, what is that? Never had that. Mentally, by the way, I was fine. I wasn't overthinking anything. But spiritually, I was all knotted up. Because in the midst of all that, I never thought, this is affecting me. I never even considered that it was affecting me. But it was manifesting in different ways in my life. And it wasn't until I sat down with godly men, and I thank God for Brandon and Zach and Ryan and Marin, I love you too. But I'm just talking about men that I can lean on and go, bro, I'm struggling right now. Guys that I can call and take my pastor hat off, and I'm like, can I complain about my board real quick? Can I complain about the sheep because the sheep bite the hardest? I'm struggling. And I talked to some pastor friends, and I just verbally vomited everything that was going on. And by God's grace, I've never had an anxiety attack since, because I learned I need help from time to time. And it's okay to take help from somebody. It's okay to let somebody carry the burden. It's okay to accept that. And I think Moses figured that out from family. That's what I love about the fact that you're in a family, because family will tell you what you need to hear even when you don't want to hear it. Exodus chapter 18, verse 14 through 18 says, when Moses' father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he asked, what are you really accomplishing here? You gotta understand, Moses would wake up in the morning, and from morning till night would sit there and listen to complaint after complaint after complaint from every single person in the Israelite camp. That is a horrible job. But all day long, and I'm talking about I don't like manna. It's okay, complaint after complaint after complaint. And so his father-in-law, Jethro's watching all this, and he's like, bro, what are you even actually accomplishing? Why are you doing this all alone while everyone stands around you from morning till evening? Moses replied, because the people come to me to get a ruling from God. When a dispute arises, they come to me. I am the one who settles the case between the quarreling parties. I inform the people of God's decrees and give them his instructions. This is not good, Moses' father-in-law exclaimed. You're going to wear yourself out and the people too. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. But, I'm the man of the house. I'm dad. I'm the husband. This is too hard of a burden for you to carry all by yourself. You're going to wear yourself out, and you're going to ruin your family in the same way. But I'm a leader, like I'm in charge, I'm responsible. This is too heavy a burden for you to carry all by yourself. You're gonna wear yourself out and the people who depend on you too. At some point, you gotta be willing to realize you're not God and you don't have to do this alone. And so Jethro goes, now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice and may God be with you. Come on, I love family that could care less what your title is. Man, I've preached at some really cool platforms and I got a lot of followers on Instagram and I think I'm a pretty cool guy. My wife is not impressed with me in the slightest. And there are so many times I'm like, hey, babe, you saw what happened? That was pretty cool, huh? She goes, yeah. I was like, are you impressed? She said, no, I figured you'd do that. I was like, but it was still cool. It's kind of impressive. Like, she's not impressed. She's like, no, it's cool. Like, can you throw the trash out? I was like, yeah, I got it. Mm-hmm. And you know what's cool about that? Is my wife will tell me exactly what I need to hear. It is amazing, by the way, how much the Holy Spirit sounds like your wife's. But she don't care. And when she has to say it, like, so I hear it, that's when both names come out. Joey Silva. I was like, oh, what? You can't talk to them like that. Well, they're being dumb. Listen, God's going to put people in your life. It might be biological family. It might be your spiritual family. It might be the leaders in this place, the pastors. Listen, I love your pastors, and I know them well enough to know they're going to tell you what you need to hear even if you don't like it. Because that's what good pastors do. They love you enough. Well, what if they leave? Bye. This is the house of God. We can't lie to each other. It doesn't help you for me to coddle you. I have to tell you the word of God. I have to tell you the word of truth. And you, if you got an issue with it, take it up with God. It's not my opinion. I wasn't preaching out of second opinions. I'm preaching out of Exodus now. And so he says, this is not good. You're going to wear yourself out in the people too. Then he gives him great advice. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to him, teach them God's decrees, and give them his instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives. In other words, hey, keep carrying your load. It's yours to carry, Moses. But select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes. Appoint them as leaders over groups of 1,150 and 10. In other words, Moses, keep on carrying your load. Be the spiritual leader. Be the judge. Be the teacher. But let other capable people carry the burden off your hands. Let me take a second here and just, again, I love your pastors. And sometimes as a guest speaker, I like to say things that pastors may not say for themselves. These are the leaders that God has placed in your life in this season. They have a responsibility and a load that only they can carry. You, though, be mindful of them. And I love what they're saying. Say, hey, listen, you can't do everything. Moses, he brought people that are capable of leading thousands, and that are capable of leading 100, and that are capable of leading 10, and that only have the capability to lead one. Not all of you can do everything, but every one of you can do something. So what are you doing so that the burden doesn't fall squarely on a couple of people? And what I love about this season that you're in is that there really is no option. Either we all go and win or we all lose, because they are physically incapable of setting everything up, of tearing everything down, of preaching and taking care of the kids and greeting the people at the door and doing all the ins and outs. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to get in. When churches get really, really, really big, it's easy to just go in and come out and nobody notices. At this point, I can tell you, Phil, you don't do nothing, bro. Get involved. There is no Phil here. I made that name up. But if it is, let the Holy Spirit convict you, Phil. Again, I think Moses freely accepted the help from Aaron and Hur because he was willing to take the advice of Jethro. He learned his lesson. I'm going to be humble because I'm not God. I only serve him. And I'm going to take the help that's offered to me. Worship team, if you can help me out. Now, all that being said, I don't want to be unrealistic or unkind, because I understand that every one of us here has things that are on our shoulders that might be weighing us down. And I also understand that just because you carry it well doesn't mean it's not heavy. And so for some of you, it's like, man, you look great. You're carrying it well, but it is heavy. And from time to time, we need to be able to let things down before the Lord. We need to be able to unburden ourselves. And so I'm going to ask you to stand if you're able to. just because it's the morning and this helps you pay better attention. And I'm going to ask you for a moment of transparency and honesty. Where are you at today? What are you carrying? For some of you, you might have been not taking care of your responsibilities. You've been blaming everybody else for what you're supposed to do. You've been mad at everybody else for your load to carry. For some, maybe you've been selfish and you haven't been mindful of your neighbors. Matter of fact, it's not just not mindful, you've been judgmental. And you look at them and you criticize them because they're not carrying what you can carry. Listen, I love my wife. I can't get mad at her because she can't carry the same weight I can carry. We're different people. Now, she's pretty strong. Holding babies for that long, she got strong. But she's not going to carry what I'm built to carry because we're different people. We're called to carry different things. So some of us, we stop being mindful of other people's burdens because we've been critical of where they're at and they should figure it out and they should do this, they should do that. Hey, maybe that's true, but maybe it's also true that you should help out. And it doesn't take much, by the way. It could be a kind word. It could be an encouragement, a hug. It could be little things. I had a sister in the first service. She just handed me some money. And I was like, no. I fought her on it. And she goes, this is for your kids. It's not for you. I'm like, slick. She goes, because your kids paid the price for you to not be with them. And so I want to bless your kids. You want to encourage me? You want to lift my arms? Love my kids. Take care of my children. Because that's the heaviest load I'm carrying. It doesn't take much for us to be mindful of one another. So, maybe you're not taking care of responsibility. Maybe you're not worrying about other people's burdens. Maybe you're carrying too many other people's loads. And you're really weighed down today because you're carrying stuff you're not called to carry. Or maybe you're being prideful. And you're not even willing to admit that you're tired, that you're hurting, and that you need to let go. I said this in the first service. There's no law in the Bible or in our country that states I have to carry every single bag of groceries in one trip. But I do it because I'm a man. And I'm telling you, that feeling when I finally get up there and I drop everything and it's a, ugh. The got louder as I got in my 40s. I just went, ugh. Such a relief to just let go. And I think maybe there's somebody here, today, just in this moment, you need to let go and you need to let God carry you. Just for a season. Let me give you one more verse and we're going to take some time to worship and to pray. One last thing I wanted to share and we'll wrap this up. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 29. And then Jesus said, come to me, all of you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Some of the biggest weights in our life is not on our body, but in our soul. Just tired. There might even be somebody here, you're so tired with life that you're not even sure if life's worth living anymore. You're so tired with issues that you just want to walk away from everybody. You want to abandon your load because you're just tired in your soul. But I love this word because it's an invitation from Jesus to say, hey, come to me. Let me carry it for a little while. But I love what he says. Let me teach you. For my yoke is light. The yoke was a wooden mechanism that tied two oxen together, a strong ox and a weak ox. And it was purposed so that the strong ox would lead the weak ox until the weak ox became stronger. And so what Jesus is saying is, hey, come to me, all of you who are weary and you're carrying heavy burdens, and I'm going to give you rest. But if you also let me teach you, I'm going to show you how to carry this. So many of our prayers is, God, remove this, instead of, God, strengthen me to carry it. Empower me, because it has to get carried. And you've called me to carry it. Help me, Lord, to do what I can't do in and of myself. So I'm going to ask you for just a moment to bow your heads. Pastor Marion, if you can help me, can you just sing that song over them? Just a moment or two. I want you to just, with your hands, your palms up if you're able to. In a moment we're going to pray, but I just want you to receive. So I'm going to ask the worship team to just sing this song over you. And I want you to just listen to the words, and I just want you to take it in for a moment, and then we're going to take some time to pray. Can you do that for us?